Hello, my name is Chloe. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm bringing to you my June wrap-up. So apologies for this being slightly late, but I did still want to keep up with the monthly wrap-ups. I hope that you're still interested in what I read in June, and hopefully I can wrap it up very quickly for you. So I actually met my goal in June and I read 17 books. So that sounds fantastic, but in order to meet my reading goal for the year, I need to be reading 17 books every month, and I haven't really achieved it quite this year. So 17 is good, but it hasn't quite let me hit my Goodreads goal. With my goal being 200, I needed to be at 100 books by the 30th of June, and I was actually closer to 94, 95. So a little bit more reading needs to be done throughout the year, but I still think I can do it. As I said, I read 17 books, 9 of those were physical books and 8 of those were audiobooks. I read a total of 6,369 pages, meaning the average pages per day was 212 and the average pages per book was 375 pages. The ratings went like this. I had 1 book I didn't rate, 2 1-star books, 7 3-star books, 2 3.5-star books, 1 4.5-star, and 4 5-star reviews, which is amazing for me. Which did mean my average rating this month was a 3.4 star. Anything above a 3 for me is pretty damn good. So I won't take too long with these because I don't want this to be a really long wrap up. The book that I didn't rate was Inside the Mind of John Wayne Gacy by Brad Hunter. This is an audiobook I picked up from Scribd, and it actually matches the Chloe's Crime Scene Corner book for August. So I decided to give this a go, check out the format, see what I thought about it. And I did find this one very informative. I really struggle with rating non-fiction sometimes because this one is literally just an account of who John Wayne Gacy was, who he killed, what happened to him kind of book. So there's nothing really for me that I felt comfortable in rating, but I would recommend this one. I felt like it was a good, easy way to comprehend everything that happened. And yeah, I am excited to pick up the companion about Jeffrey Dahmer. Next up, my 2 1-star reads are the second and third of a trilogy that I was incredibly excited to read, and I hated them both with a fiery passion. So that is Girls with Razor Hearts and Girls with Rebel Souls by Suzanne Young. I can't tell you too much about these because they are actually, as I said, the second and third in the series of Girls with Sharp Sticks, but Girls with Sharp Sticks stands to be one of my favourite books of all time. 5 stars, love it, will not stop recommending it. But I am now going to consider that book as a standalone, and these 2 have already gone from my possession. I outright hated them. This book's kind of a weird one in itself because you can't say too much about the synopsis without spoiling everything. So all I will say is that the first book is a school for girls where they are trained to be the perfect wives. Think Handmaid's Tale kind of vibe. There are dystopian elements, but that is all I will say on that. The second and third books felt like Suzanne Young needed to have a rant, and she did, and that was pretty much it. There was no intriguing storyline in these books. It was basically just continued rants, and I was not here for it. I didn't find it entertaining. I didn't like the second one and was really upset about that, and then I listened to the audio of number 3. So both of these, I think I listened to the majority of them at the gym and just like scowled through the whole thing. People would have thought it was for the workout. It was not. It was for these awful books. I do not recommend you read these. So now we jump from 1-star to 3-star, and the first 3-star book I have to talk about is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. I didn't dislike this, but I definitely had my problems with it. So this is the 3rd book in the Arc of the Scythedom series. Scythe and Thunderhead, I love them both. I did think I liked Thunderhead less, but I've looked back at my reviews, turns out I didn't, and I seem to have loved both of these books. The Arc of the Scythedom series is now a duology in my brain because I have actually unhauled The Toll. I did not consider reading it again. This is a chunky book. It's huge, and I just don't feel like it was necessary. I felt like we could have lost 200 pages of this book and had the same outcome. The timelines were quite confusing. Saying that, I did give it 3 stars, so overall I liked it, but I just don't feel like it was quite necessary, so it stays at a fine rating. Next up, Clara and the Sun, and I'm gonna butcher this, but by Kazuo Ishiguro. I'm so sorry, I try my hardest, I promise. This was a literary fiction, science fiction, dystopian, a bit of everything. And I did like it. I did. So this is about a society where artificial friends are a thing and they're like robot companions for kids. I thought it was a really cool premise, but we're actually hearing from the narration of Clara, who is an artificial friend, and she gets her nourishment from the sun. And I know that if Lucy's watching this, she's gonna laugh. But yeah, the sun and his nourishment is basically the whole premise of this book. But I did find it really interesting. I felt like it was an interesting concept. I liked the writing style, it was very different, and I'm not against trying another of this author's works. But the actual, how this story came to conclusion wasn't really that exciting to me, and I wasn't thrilled by it. So we've stuck at 3 stars. I'm not going to say you shouldn't read it, but I'm also not going to be shouting about it. Next up, we have quite a disappointment actually, and that is 4 by Veronica Roth. So this is the 4th book in the Divergent series, and it's actually a collection of short stories from throughout the time of Divergent, told from our main character 4. And I just don't feel like this was necessary. Another one where I don't feel like it was necessary. So I can't really tell you even the summary of what this book is because it's kind of spoilers for Divergent. But I read this in the Dystopian Readathon. I wanted to finish off the collection. I have these gorgeous anniversary editions, and yeah, I just don't need to hold on to this. It didn't do anything special for me, and I actually kind of felt like it was a bit of a money grab. But I did give it 3 stars because I love the characters. I love being back in this world, but I feel like we didn't learn anything we didn't know already. So money grab, unfortunately. Next up, we have an arc that I read, which is The Last One to Fall by Gabriella Lepore. So I also gave this one 3 stars. I didn't dislike it, I just wasn't exactly thrilled. So this is about Savannah and Jesse, who've known each other since they were kids. So when Jesse asks Savannah to meet him at Cray's warehouse in the middle of the night, she doesn't hesitate. But before Savannah can find Jesse, she bears witness to a horrifying murder, standing helpless on the ground as a mysterious figure is pushed out of the 4th floor of the warehouse. 6 teens were there that night, and 5 of them are now potential suspects. With the police circling, Savannah knows what will happen if the wrong person is charged, but someone is willing to do whatever it takes to keep the truth from coming to light. So, that does sound very thrilling. My main issue with this is that it was very obvious, and I don't know whether that's because I've read a lot of YA thrillers and maybe I need to stop because I'm kind of ruining it, but I felt like the story was very clear from the get-go. Never mind. I have read the author's debut, which is This Is Why We Lie, and unfortunately I did prefer that one a little bit over this one. This is just one that, again, I'm not going to tell you not to read it, I just wasn't absolutely hooked. So I actually listened to this on audio in the end because it had come out by the time I was reading it. So I picked up the audio on script and it was a quick and easy time, but it just wasn't that impactful. Next up, Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. So I wanted to love this book. I really, really did. And I feel like my issue is I picked it up via audio, not via like physically reading it. And I was doing it at a potentially busy, stressful time. So maybe I didn't take it all in, but I just did not enjoy the storyline at all. So this is about a town where our main character moves, and there is a figure of the town called Friendo, and Friendo is some scary looking clown, but everyone seems to worship him. There are also a group of teenagers who are getting in trouble constantly with teachers and adults in the town. They're making YouTube videos, like taking the mick out of people and making fun of situations. And the older generation aren't a massive fan of that. So this whole book boils down to a night where Friendo attacks. And I just didn't like the storyline. Like, I really didn't. Some of the scary things probably could have been scary. Probably gory. But I just didn't like the story. Wow, that rhymed. Look at me go. But yeah, I don't think I'll be reading the sequel of this. It just didn't wow me. Next up, Someone Is Watching You by Tess James Mackey. I had such high hopes. This felt like Destination or Project Fear for kids, and that's what I wanted, but sadly it wasn't quite like that. So this is about our main character, Nia, who would do anything to win her boyfriend's approval. He's a year older than her, he has cool friends, and they don't really like her. So she gets dared to explore an abandoned prison, which she does, and she takes her little sister along with her. See, I've given it 3 stars because I do think it was a fun book, and I think if I would have read this at 12, 13 years old, I would have been like properly shivering in fear. But I just don't feel like the storytelling was that great. So again, the twist was very, very obvious. That could be YA horror. I've read it before. I'll read it again. But my main issue was the characters' motivations did not stick. So we had timeline jumps from the present back into the past. And our main character would get in really stressful situations in the present. We would do a skip to the past chapter to find out like some background. We'd come back to the present and she immediately was not stressed, even though a second had passed in time and there were horrific things happening, but everything was calm again and, oh, let's just take a selfie. Bit weird. I would recommend this to its target audience. I think I might give this to my goddaughter. I feel like she'll be very scared. Maybe it's not one for right now, but she is like 10. So maybe she's nearly at this stage. I'll hold on to it. I don't know. It could be scary. I don't feel like it was written that well. Moving on. The last 3-star book is The Million Pieces of Nina Gill by Emma Smith Barton. This was a book I've had on my shelves for the longest time because it was the group book for the mental health readathon, and that must have been 2020. I listened to this on audio in the end. It was another one that was really obvious. So this is about Nina, whose brother has disappeared without a trace, and she is dealing with a lot of mental health issues that are undiagnosed. She's potentially not dealing with these in the best way. There is alcohol involved, and her schoolwork is slipping, which causes the teachers to be concerned, parents to be concerned. The strange romance in this was very weird. It creeped me out a little bit knowing that Nina was so vulnerable, but there were times that I thought, okay, if I'd read this as a teenager, I'd be so on board with this. But the actual reveal I felt was very obvious. Again, have I read too many YA contemporaries? Do I need to stop reading YA? Potentially. And the whole premise of this book is effectively using the mental health issue as the plot device, which always feels a bit iffy to me. So 3 stars. It was fine. Would I recommend it? Maybe not. So my 3.5-star books of the month, the first one is Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. And I don't have this anymore. I left it on the train when I came back from London, kind of on purpose because I wanted to leave it somewhere public. Kind of a bad idea because I was at the last stop. So it's probably just in Lost and Found somewhere and not really achieved my goal. Anyway, this book gave me Sweet Pea vibes. This was about our main character who had some secrets in her past, but she'd actually decided to kind of reinvent herself and become the trophy wife with the cool job and a husband that she might not like, but he looks good on paper. So very much Sweet Pea by CJ Scoose vibes. Okay, so I liked it. She was a really cool character, very, very cool character. I was laughing, I was just having a good time. She was creepy to the fact that I loved it. I love messed up stuff. When we got towards the end, I felt like she really lost her personality, which was weird. But all of the spunkiness that made her a cool character seemed to go, which was odd. And we also kept being brought back to what happened in her childhood, like teenage years, to make her like this. And I felt like the reveal just wasn't that cool. It wasn't that compelling. So yeah, I had to stop this at a 3.5 star. When I started reading it, it genuinely could have been a 5-star, but because the character lost her personality, and that was the best part, I really had to bring my rating down. But I didn't dislike this. Another one I didn't dislike, but I gave it 3.5 stars, was Conviction by Jack Jordan. And I was on the tandem read along for this. I read this just about when it was published. And unfortunately, I don't think it was that amazing. Like, some people are loving this. I have some issues. Am I too picky? Maybe. So this was a legal thriller, and I will say it's the best legal thriller I have ever read. I don't particularly like them, but I wanted to give this one a go. This is about a woman who is a defense barrister, and she is given a case after the original defense barrister has killed himself and cannot continue to defend the case, clearly. So she gets brought in at the last minute, and a man approaches her and says, if you do not throw this case and make this guy go to prison, then I am going to reveal your secrets that you have. There is a guy coming to clean my window, like right now, seriously, let me shut my curtains. So where was I? Sorry. Neve, our defense barrister, has a secret, and her husband went missing many years ago. I want to say like 5 to 10. It was a long time ago. Her husband went missing. We keep being brought back to the relationship with the husband, to the secret she's hiding. I felt like the reveal of the secret was a bit pants, so my whole issue is, yes, what will she do about this case, but also what is she trying to hide? And I feel like the what will she do about this case took priority, but we kept being brought back to the husband, and I just wanted to know what actually happened and why and all the details, but I don't feel like we really got that. So that immediately brought me down to at least a 4. Then the conclusion of this book is very, very overdone, I think. I don't know what the word I mean is. The whole book seems a little bit out there, but quite fits in to the British defence system. We're on the tube a lot. We're walking down the roads in London that we know. Everything felt real until we got to the final, like, judgment day in court, and it just felt very, like, Americanized, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about it apart from the fact it disappointed me. So 3.5 stars. Next we jump straight up to 4.5 stars, and that's what I rated The Grace Year by Kim Liggett. So this was the first book I read for the Dystopian Readathon, and I am so glad I finally read it. So glad. This is about a society where the girls get shipped off in their 16th year into the wilderness to have God knows what happens. When they leave, they are betrothed to a man. A man claims them, and if they make it back from the Grace Year, they will get married, have kids, all those things. So they're told when they go away they have to rid themselves of their dangerous magic, and this book was so weird that I loved it. I love messed up stuff, so I love that side of it. There was something just missing for 5 stars, but I really am going to start recommending this as a really interesting dystopian book. It's like dystopian with a magic base and also very heavy horror, because there's some really gory things that go on here. I realise I've now talked less about this than all the books I didn't like, but I just would really recommend this if you liked, well, I mean dystopians, but this is kind of the upper range of YA, so I'm thinking if you like the whole Divergent idea, Ink by Alice Broadway, I don't know why that one's coming to my mind a bit more. If you've read The Killables by Gemma Malley, those kinds of like gritty dystopians, then you'll like this one. So next up, on to my 5-star reads, of which we have 4, and I don't know what order to go in. Okay, these are all pretty much equal 5 stars, to be honest, so I'll go with least surprising to most surprising to me. Least surprising was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. This was actually a reread for the Kiss Quotient read-along that I am hosting. So I went through this time and actually annotated with my thoughts. One of the tabs was literally called I Have Feelings, because I had so many feelings about this book. I genuinely love it, and I do now think this is my favourite romance of all time, which is a really big push. But I think it might be. I'm okay standing up to this definition. Favourite romance of all time. The live show for our thoughts, because it got delayed with my whole YouTube break, is actually the Sunday after this video goes live. I will link it in the description. If you're watching this when it goes live, set your reminder so you can join us. If you're watching afterwards, maybe you can catch up on the live show if you have feelings about this book or want to know mine and the other girls in more detail. The next least surprising, maybe this should have been most unsurprising, was Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. So I am hosting a read along and watch along with my patrons of the Twilight books and movies. So Twilight, June was our first month to get back into the reread, and oh my god, I had such a good time, such a good time. Even reading this, I could see the issues and I didn't care. This is so nostalgic for me. It genuinely makes me so incredibly happy to reread, and there were times because I played the Twilight soundtrack while I was reading this and I would be genuinely sobbing at nothing, at literally nothing, but tears, full tears. There are so many quotes in this I love, I will never stop loving, and I'm just so glad that the patrons gave me the opportunity to reread this with them, and I'm really excited to carry on doing the rereads. Next up, can we believe it? The Viscount Who Loved Me by Julia Quinn. This is the second book in the Bridgerton series, and I gave the first book 4.5 stars. This one was an easy 5. I loved it. So unfortunately, this is the Netflix cover, and the Netflix show is nothing like this book. There are barely any similarities. So this is about the oldest Bridgerton sibling. This is about Anthony, and we see him in book 1 or TV series 1 trying to match up his oldest sister, Daphne. It's now the time that he thinks he needs to choose a wife and settle down as the Viscount. So he picks the lovely Miss Edwina Sheffield to be his wife. But her older sister Kate is really getting in the way, and are there feelings there? Who knows? My camera cut me off, how rude. I really love this one. I appreciated every way that it was different from the TV show. I do think if you've watched the TV show and you're like, oh, should I bother reading it? Yes, definitely, because they are so different, and I just can't wait to continue reading the series. So we've had season 3 announced, which is actually based on book 4, so I need to be reading books 3 and 4 very shortly. And finally, the most surprising book that I gave 5 stars this month is Only Love Can Hurt Like This by Paige Toon. I loved this book. I loved it. It completely broke my heart. I was an absolute mess when I finished it. So this is about Ren, who finds out in a very nice way actually, that her fiance is in love with another woman, and they split. Her dad lives in America, so she decides to fly out, spend some time with her dad, have a little bit of a break, and reassess what she's doing with her life. She then meets Anders, who lost his wife many years ago, and he is the oldest son of the family in the farm next door, and they kind of irritate each other, but do they really? This says walking away would hurt Ren more than she can imagine, but knowing the truth, how can she possibly stay? There are some big reveals, some big secrets in this that I didn't expect to happen, but I absolutely loved it. It genuinely broke my heart. Most surprising, but definitely deserved 5-star read this month. I really loved it. So there we have it. Those are the 17 books I read this month. I have been talking for far too long. I always want to keep it short and then I don't. So please do let me know if you have any feelings on any of these books. I would love to chat to you about them in the comments. But for now, that's all I have time for. So thank you very much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.